What is up, my dudes and dudettes? It's the Suicide Squad Reject, rising from my eternal slumber, to sit down and tell you a nice story called It Has No Face. Now, this creepypasta has a special place in my heart, because it pulled me back into my obsession with horror, and is overall just a great horror story. That being said, zip up your flies, say your goodbyes, all that good shit, and let's jump right in. The story begins with Poster saying, quote, "Everyone has a story about the strange and bizarre. My story is about how my half-whole mask saved my life, and continues to do so till this very day." Poster goes on to explain that they were traveling to their home state of Oregon to visit their family for the holidays, but on their way there they hit a snowstorm. Nothing major, just a bunch of snow falling all at once. Poster says, quote, "I wasn't worried about the small increase of snow at first, considering I had snow tires installed before I started my long journey home. I did, however, get a little hesitant to drive when the snow started to really calm down. Poster, seeing the large amount of snow and littering the ground, caused them to consider finding a place to stay for the night, figuring they could sneak in some J's while the snowstorm passes over, and give their car's heater a break, before it fucking explodes. So Poster starts scanning the immediate area, but unfortunately there weren't any buildings nearby. Poster explains that their only options were to keep driving, freeze their ass off, and hope there was another town or exit nearby. Poster says, quote, "I must have been driving for at least an hour before I saw a sign up ahead indicating how far the closest city was. My heart sank a little when I read 162 miles as it flew by my windshield and vanished into the night. At this point, the snow was beating against my windshield, and I knew I wasn't going to survive 162 miles, let alone minutes." Poster looked at the digital clock on the radio head, 1:21 a.m., and decided to take the next turn they saw and hope they'd find a neighborhood that would help. Poster says, quote, "My thought process was either freeze to death in my car or spend the night with a random person's house. Weighing the two options in my head, I went with the only option the same person would pick and went to go find a house. 30 minutes went by, and just as Poster was beginning to lose hope, they saw a turnoff in the distance. A small shape made its way closer into view. Upon further inspection, Poster realized it was two wooden poles that most likely belonged to a fence. Poster turned to the road between the two wooden poles. The ground beneath them felt rocky and rough, like a gravel road. It didn't take long for Poster to arrive at a small cabin. Holy shit, Evil Dead reference. Poster parked their car underneath a tree and got out, and pulled their mask up to their face to keep themselves warm. They walked up to the cabin and noticed there was no sign of life. Not even cars in the driveway. Poster got to the door and knocked 3 times. After a while, without an answer, Poster said, quote, "Hello, is anybody there? Look, I'm sorry to bother you so late, but I need a place to stay for a few hours." After not getting a response, Poster knocked again, saying, quote, "Hello? I'm not here to rob you or anything, I just really need a place to stay for the night. I promise I'll be gone by sunlight." Not getting any answers, Poster decided to try the door, and surprisingly it was unlocked. So they said, "I'm coming in now. If anyone's in there, please let me know." Poster went inside the cabin and was greeted by a pitch black room. They noticed there were 5 rooms: the kitchen, the living room, a washroom, and what they assumed to be 2 bedrooms at the back. Poster turned on their phone's flashlight and looked for a light switch. While searching, they looked at a few paintings, saying, quote, "Each painting that crossed my sight was just typical landscapes or harbors, stuff like that. There was one painting that looked like a fox hunter. Other than that, it was just typical paintings you'd find in an old person's house. There was one painting, however, that did catch my attention. The painting was small and consisted of what looked like a mother, a father, a teenage girl, and a small child. The family captured in the painting wore what looked like Victoria-era clothes. There's something really disturbing about the image, though. The faces of each family member looked like they were smoothed out with clay. It's hard to describe, but the 3 family members looked like they had no facial features. The only person that didn't have a blank face was the teenage girl." Poster pulls away from the painting and looks at their phone. 2 in the morning. Poster went towards one of the bedrooms and hopped into bed, pulling their mask completely over their face, after setting an alarm to wake them up at 4 a.m., and went to sleep. After maybe an hour or so, Poster starts hearing scratching. Thinking it was just a rat, they choose to ignore it for now. They shifted onto their back and pulled their mask down slightly in order to see what's going on. The scratching went on for a bit until it stopped suddenly. Poster says, quote, "Silence filled the room again, but it wasn't that safe kind of silence. It's the deafening kind of silence. Foreboding, ominous, the kind of silence that happens in the horror movies, right before something pops out at you. Just as Poster started to calm down, the doorknob started jiggling and moving around. Poster remained perfectly still on the bed, despite every nerve in their instinct telling them to run. Poster's eyes widened as the closet door opened, and what they described as a dried head attached to an elongated neck popped out. It crawled over to the bed they were resting on, and Poster says, quote, "I've never been more frightened in my life," as the thing stood up, almost touching the ceiling of the cabin, and looked down at me. The creature stood there, appearing to almost study Poster. After looking at its face, Poster noticed that it didn't have any eyes. When Poster began to feel some relief that maybe this thing couldn't see it, it spoke. "Strange, you have no fear of me." While gripping the edge of the bed, Poster went into full panic mode. The only thing keeping them still was the idea that maybe this thing thought they were dead. The thing spoke again. "How can it not fear me?" Then pulled back, with its mouth wide open, as if it were terrified. "It has no face, it has no face, it has no face." It crawled back to the bed, leaning over Poster. They describe its breath as rotten. "Strange." The thing moved slowly, its hand creeping towards Poster's face. Poster says, quote, I thought this was it for me. The creature would kill me tonight or torture me and then kill me and no one would know what had happened to me. Poster felt tears well up in their eyes as the creature continued, chanting, "No face, no face," reaching his hand closer and closer to Poster's face. Just as they thought it was all over, a loud noise screeched from the bedside table, causing the creature to scream and go back towards the closet door. Poster took advantage, grabbed their phone and put it in strobe mode to disorient the thing further. The creature crawled back into the closet and chanted once more, "No face, no face, no face." Poster played loud music, causing the creature to go deeper and deeper into the closet. Poster says, quote, "The shrieks coming from the monster became fainter and fainter, almost as if they were shooting deeper into the house." Poster slammed the door shut, ran out of the house, and drove off. Poster says, quote, "I was shaking all over as I drove, and when I pulled my mask off, I was as white as the snow littering the ground." They drove into the nearest town, parked outside a store, and started sobbing. Poster says, quote, "The experience I'd just been through would scar me for life, but as I went in my car, I couldn't help but start laughing a little. I got through that whole ordeal without so much as a scratch on me. I was fine, I was alive, and I didn't have to worry anymore." After Poster finished crying, they entered a store. It was mostly empty, aside from an elderly couple. Poster went to pay, and the cashier asked, "Rough night?" as he scanned their items. Poster replied, "You have no idea. I noticed you looked a little upset when you came in. What's the matter? Did your girlfriend dump you or something?" Poster looked at the cashier's name tag and decided they had nothing to lose if they told him the story. And when they finished recounting their story, Evan just stood there, staring at Poster with a horrified expression. "Evan? You alright?" Yeah. It's just that..." He began to trail off as he realized they were being watched. Poster says, quote, "I began to feel eyes burn in the back of my head before turning around to see the elderly couple I saw when I walked in. They had the same horrified expression Evan had. They told the Poster that the cabin was haunted by a presence so terrifying that the place was condemned and left to rot. They continued by saying that no one that ever stayed in that cabin has ever been seen alive again, if they've ever been seen at all." Evan interrupted. "One of my friends stayed the night in the cabin. I refused to go in. I knew something bad would happen if we tried, but I tried so hard to convince him that that was stupid and not to go in, but he refused to be labeled as a chicken and continued with the dare." Evan's eyes began to water and he continued, "I never saw him again after that night. I kept calling his house, but his parents still couldn't find him. We put up flyers on the billboards, but we never had any luck. After a few days, I contacted the police and I told them about the cabin." Evan choked down his tears. "They found him in the basement, sprawled out on the floor, His eyes were surgically removed out of his fucking sockets. His nose was gone and his lips, they were sliced off. When they found him, he was naked, incision from the bottom of his ribcage, his pelvis, down to the middle of his body. All of the internal organs were extracted. To add insult to injury, his fucking genitals were sliced clean off. You want to know what the worst part of it is? When the police did an autopsy of the body, they found out he was alive during the whole thing. The old man went behind the counter and began to comfort Evan before turning his attention to Poster and saying, "People have been disappearing from that cabin for decades. Maybe even centuries for all we know. But the bodies all end up in the same gruesome way. I don't care who you are. No one deserves something like that. They should just torch the damn place to the ground." The man's wife added, "If your story is true, you should consider yourself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. In all my years of living, you are the only person to come back alive." Poster realized that Evan's friend was found in the basement, meaning that the thing could have dragged him down there and killed him. Poster paid and left, and now more scared than before, feeling drowsy, they decided to go to a hotel. Poster says, quote, "That night I sat on bed and looked at the two items that had saved my life. On one hand, my mask, which hid my face from that terrible monster. On the other, I held my cell phone, which scared away the beast that could have killed me." After the recent brush with death, Poster realizes that life is too precious to waste. So they ask out their friend on a date, and eventually they get married, though that night may never leave them. Because of that, they wear masks to sleep and lock every door before bed. Poster couldn't be happier. There is just one small problem. Sometimes, they wake up at night, and it's real quiet. They can hear scratching. And maybe it's just their imagination. But sometimes, they can hear something whisper, "No face," from inside their closet. So, what the hell is going on with the monster and the voice near the end? Well, I got a theory. First of all, let's start with the monster. What if, and hear me out, what if the faceless people created it? After all, it is scared of them. And what if I told you the creature is the teenage daughter? Maybe the parents were abusive, or maybe they just experimented on her for the kicks, causing her to be transformed into the monster described in the story. The voice at the end? I'm gonna be real here, it's probably just Poster's imagination. Unless the thing followed them, but that's unlikely. So, long time no see. Happy New Year, by the way. It's fucking March now. Sorry for not uploading. I hope it's been worth the wait though, and that you enjoyed the video. This was initially supposed to be released on Christmas, but I missed that deadline by a lot. So yeah, rest assured there are more videos on the way, but this is where I might take my leave. Adios.
What's this Scooby-Doo? We're coming after you. You're gonna